Today, Princess Leonor's Constitution reveals a hidden message. 2 years
She stood
later,
in Parliament.
She
18
stood
years
there,
old.
18 years
swearing
old,
loyalty to
hand
Spain.
on the Constitution.
Everyone heard
The
the
future
words.
of Spain
Almost
watching
no
in
one
silence.
heard the message.
But here's what
because
no
hidden
one tells
inside
you.
Princess
That
Leonor
oath
wasn't a celebration.
was a truth Spain
it was
wasn't
a warning.
ready to face.
And 2 years
They
later,
told us it
we're
was
only
tradition,
just beginning
a
to understand
constitutional
why.
formality.
Everyone
A future
remembers
queen
the
doing
image.
what future
Princess
queens have
Leonor,
always done.
straight back,
Standing
calm
straight,
expression,
speaking
military
clearly,
uniform
promising
pressed to
loyalty.
perfection.
But history
The
doesn't
Congress of
repeat
Deputies
itself
holding
cleanly
its breath.
anymore.
On October
Princess
31,
Leonor's
2023,
spoken on that
Spain
October
didn't just
day
watch a
was
ceremony.
not just a promise.
Spain watched
It was
a
a
transformation,
signal, a boundary,
because that
and
moment,
quietly,
her Constitution
a
oath,
to
was
understand
supposed to
the
be
hidden
simple.
message.
You have
A
to
formality,
understand what
a
wasn't
tradition,
supposed to
a rite
happen.
of passage that
The
every
scene
future
everyone
monarch
thinks
must
they
remember.
remember.
The
But something
Spanish
about
Congress of
Leonor's
Deputies
oath
was
felt
immaculate.
heavier,
Gold
slower,
trim,
red
more
velvet,
deliberate,
marble
and
that
people
remembers
sensed
centuries.
immediately.
King
Not
Felipe
because
the
of what
Sixth
she
sat
said,
rigid,
but
Queen
because of what she
Letizia
didn't.
watched closely,
She didn't
closer
smile.
than protocol
She didn't
required.
search the room for
Politicians
comfort.
applauded
She didn't
on
look
cue,
like a
and
teenager
Princess
stepping
Leonor
into
walked
adulthood.
forward alone.
She looked like
not
someone
as a child,
stepping into
not
history.
quite as a monarch.
And that raises the
But
first
something
question we
Spain has
didn't
never
ask
truly
loudly
known
enough at the
before.
time.
A modern air
What
in a
did that
monarchy
oath
that
actually
carries
cost her?
unresolved
Because
scars.
2 years
Most
later,
viewers
the answer
remember
is
her
clear
voice as steady,
and far more
composed
emotional than
almost
anyone
rehearsed.
expected. But steady
To
doesn't mean
understand the
simple,
weight of
and
Leonor's
rehearsed
oath,
doesn't mean
you
empty.
have to strip away the
Because if you
pageantry.
listen, not
Forget
just
the
to
gold
what she
frames,
says,
but
how
forget
she
the
said
cameras.
it, something
Forget the
shifts.
applause.
At
At
its
its
core,
curiosity
a constitution
why
oath
did
is
the
not a
room feel
promise of
tense?
power.
Here's the
It
question
is a no
surrender.
broadcast
By
asked.
placing her hand
Why
on
did the
Spain's
room feel heavier
constitution,
than usual?
Leonor did three
This was meant to
irreversible
be a
things.
celebratory moment.
First,
A
she accepted
reaffirmation
that
of
her life would
continuity,
never
a
fully
reassurance
belong to her
to a
again.
divided nation.
Second,
Yet the
she
applause
bound
came
herself
in
not
waves,
to a
not
crown,
warmth,
but to a
the
document
smiles
that didn't
didn't
reach
her
the
power.
eyes. That
And
tension
third,
wasn't
she
about
publicly
Leonor's
agreed
age.
that duty would
It was
come
about
before
what she
desire.
represents.
That
Spain
last
doesn't
part is
just
the one
inherit
people
monarchs.
underestimate.
It inherits
Because when
unresolved
Leonor swore
debates
loyalty
about
to the
legitimacy,
Constitution,
relevance,
she wasn't
unity,
just promising
and
to serve
Leonor
Spain.
stepped into all of it.
She was promising
oath
to
itself,
obey it,
familiar
even if it breaks
words,
her heart
unfamiliar
one day.
weight.
And
oath
that was
brings us to a
constitutionally
quieter
unchanged. That
Same
oath wasn't
wording,
for the public.
same structure,
It was for her
same
parents.
promises.
King
But meaning
Felipe
doesn't
the
live in
Sixth
words
meters
alone.
away from his
It
daughter
lives
that
in
day.
timing, in posture,
Not just as
in
a monarch,
silence.
but
Leonor
as a father
didn't
who
rush.
understands
She didn't
exactly what that
dramatize.
oath takes
She
from
didn't
you.
soften.
She
Felipe
spoke like
took the
someone
same
who
oath
understood
decades
that every
earlier.
syllable
He
would
knows
be
the
dissected,
loneliness it
not
creates,
today,
but
he knows
years
the
from now.
emotional discipline it
And then
demands.
came the detail
And he
almost
knows the
everyone
moments it
missed.
steals.
She did not
silently.
look to her
Queen
father when she
Letizia
finished.
watched Leonor
She
with a
looked
different
forward.
kind of
That
tension.
wasn't accidental.
Because unlike
The second
Felipe,
curiosity
Letizia
loop,
came
who
from
was
an
she really
ordinary
speaking
life.
to?
She
On
understands
paper,
freedom,
the oath is to the
privacy,
Constitution.
choice.
In practice,
And as Leonor
it is
spoke
also
the
a
words of the
conversation
oath,
with
Letizia wasn't watching a
politicians who doubt
princess
the
rise.
monarchy.
Citizens
She was watching
who
a
feel
daughter step
unrepresented,
into a
a
life
generation
she
younger
could
than
never
Leonor
protect her
watching
from.
online.
2
And a
years
royal
later,
institution
royal
that has not
insiders say
always
that moment
protected
marked
its
the
own
shift
future.
inside the family.
This oath wasn't about
Conversations
obedience.
changed.
It was about
Expectations
ownership.
hardened.
Leonor
And
wasn't
Leonor's
asking
life
to inherit
accelerated
power.
overnight.
She was
Which
defining
leads to the
how
next
she intends
question.
to carry it.
Why did everything
Family
happen
tension
so
beneath
fast
the
after
ceremony.
the oath?
No
Within
royal
months
moment
of the
exists without
Constitution
its
oath,
shadows.
Leonor
King
entered one
Felipe
of the most
VI
demanding
knows this
phases
better
of her
than
life.
anyone. He inherited a crown
training,
bruised by
not
scandal,
symbolic
a
training,
monarchy
not
forced into
ceremonial
transparency
drills,
after
real,
years of
punishing,
silence. As
identity-shaping
Leonor spoke,
discipline.
Felipe
Army,
didn't smile
Navy,
much.
Air
That
Force,
matters.
3
Because
branches,
this wasn't
3
just
years,
his daughter's
0
milestone.
shortcuts.
It was a
This
reminder
wasn't
that his
tradition
reign is
for
transition's
transitional.
sake.
Leonor's
This was
oath
the oath
quietly
in motion.
acknowledged that.
Spain's
Not with
constitution
rebellion,
doesn't just
but with
define the
clarity.
monarch as
The
a
hidden
figurehead.
message begins
It
to
defines
surface.
the monarch
Here
as
is the
commander-in-chief,
message, stripped of
and
ceremony.
that role cannot
I
be
will
inherited
serve Spain,
casually,
but not
So
blindly.
Leonor's
I
oath
will honor
triggered something
tradition,
unstoppable,
but not at the cost
from
of
palace
truth.
halls to freezing
I will
barracks,
inherit the
from
crown,
formal
but not
gowns
the
to combat
silence.
boots.
She never
From
said those
protected
words,
routines to total
but she
exposure.
didn't need to.
2 years
Her tone
later,
carried
we
them.
now
Her
understand.
restraint carried
The oath
them.
wasn't
Her
the end
choice
of her
to sound like a
childhood.
citizen.
The oath
First,
was the start
and
of
a royal
gun.
second,
Publicly,
carried them.
Leonor
The
has
third
been
curiosity
flawless.
loop,
Composed
opposed.
Why did young Spaniards react differently? Privately,
Something unusual
the cost happened
happened
after the oath.
Long
Younger
separations
audiences
from
didn't
family,
dismiss it.
isolation
They
among
clipped
peers
it,
who must
shared
treat
it,
her as both
commented
equal and
not on
untouchable,
jewels,
but on
the
demeanor.
pressure of being
They
watched
saw
even
someone
when
who
she
didn't
supposed
perform
to
royalty.
disappear into
She
training.
inhabited responsibility.
And here's the part that
That's
rarely
rare
gets said
and
out
dangerous.
loud.
Because once a
Constitution
monarchy
oath
aligns
restricts
her
itself
personal
with sincerity
future,
instead
marriage,
of spectacle,
public
expectations
expectations
rise.
political neutrality,
Leonor's
personal
oath raised
opinion.
them.
Everything
Queen
must
Letitia's
align
silent
with the
role.
stability
Watch
of Spain.
Letizia during
2
the
years
oath.
later,
Not as a
analysts
queen,
now believe
but as
the
a
oath
mother
was
who
not
knows
just
what
about
scrutiny
legitimacy.
does.
Letizia understands modern
containing
Spain,
risk,
media,
containing
criticism,
emotion,
polarization,
containing unpredictability.
Her expression
And
wasn't
Leonor
pride alone,
accepted that
it was
knowingly,
recognition,
which leads
she
to
knew
the
this
most
moment would
uncomfortable
define
question
Leonor
of all.
more than any
Did
tiara
she have
ever
a
could.
choice?
And she knew her daughter
yes,
was choosing a
emotionally,
harder path.
no.
The
Leonor
fourth
was raised
curiosity
not
loop.
to question
Why
the
didn't
path,
Leonor
but
try
to
to
prepare
charm
for
the
it.
room?
From
Most
childhood,
heirs charm.
her education
Leonor
was
didn't.
designed around
She didn't
one
seek
assumption.
approval.
Spain
She didn't
comes
lean
first.
into emotion.
The oath simply
she
made
didn't
that
soften
assumption
her
public.
authority.
And
that
once
respoken,
spoken,
was the
it
point.
cannot be undone.
Charm fades.
2 years
Credibility
later,
doesn't.
Leonor's
Her oath
expressions
wasn't
are more
designed
controlled.
to be loved.
Her silence
it was
is
designed
longer,
to be believed.
her presence heavier,
The deeper
not
historical
because she is
context.
unhappy,
Spain's
but
monarchy
because she
survives
understands
not
something
because
most
it is
teenagers
adored,
never
but
have
because
to
it
face.
adapts. Her life is
Leonor's
symbolic.
oath was
Every move
adaptation in
teaches
real
Spain
time.
what kind of
A
queen
future
she will
queen
be.
acknowledging
And symbolism
a
leaves
fractured
no
political
room for
climate.
impulse.
A skeptical
At the time,
public,
critics
a monarchy
argued
that
the oath
must
was
earn
outdated,
trust,
not
demanded,
ceremonial. The
unnecessary,
hidden message wasn't
a relic.
radical.
2
It
years
was
later,
realistic.
those
And
critics are
realism is
quieter,
the most
because
disruptive
Spain
force
has
of all.
changed.
The
Political
emotional
tensions,
tensions,
a young
generational
woman alone
divides,
divides.
questions
Strip
about
away the
monarchy
cameras,
itself.
strip away the
Leonor's
titles.
oath now
What
stands
remains
as
is an
stabilizing
18-year-old
anchor,
standing
a moment
before
frozen
centuries
in
of
time that
expectation.
says,
The future
she
is
didn't
prepared.
cry.
The
She
line
didn't
is secure.
falter.
But
The crown
emotional
understands
strength
doesn't
its
always
limits.
show itself
And that
in
is
tears.
precisely why the oath
Sometimes
mattered
it shows
so
up as
deeply.
stillness.
It wasn't about
Leonor's
asserting
stillness
authority.
spoke volumes.
It was about
the final
reassuring a
curiosity
nation that
loop.
power would
What
remain
happens
restrained.
now? Here's
Strip
the truth
everything
Spain
away,
may have
and
missed.
one truth remains.
This oath was not a
Leonor
climax.
was 18,
It was a beginning.
still becoming
Leonor
herself,
didn't step
still
into
forming
power.
identity,
She stepped
still
into
discovering
accountability.
emotion,
Every
and yet
future
she accepted
speech,
a role
every
that demands
silence,
emotional
every
restraint
choice.
for life.
They will all trace
2
back
years
to this
later,
moment.
that contrast
Because
is
this is
clearer
where
than
she
ever.
quietly
When
told
she
Spain,
laughs,
it's
I see
brief.
what this crown
When
has
she
been.
speaks,
And
it's
I know
measured.
what it must
When
become.
she appears,
Closing
it's
reflection.
intentional.
Years
Not
from
because
now,
she's cold,
historians
but
may
because
stop
the oath taught
replaying
her
the
something
applause.
early.
They'll replay the
Visibility
pauses,
is responsibility.
the eye line,
Here's
the
the
tone,
final
the
curiosity
absence of
loop.
performance.
The Constitution
And they'll
oath
say,
was not
that
her
was the
last.
moment Princess
One day,
Leonor stopped
Leonor
being
will
the
swear
future
another,
and started
queen.
becoming a
And when
promise
that
Spain
happens,
couldn't ignore.
historians
If
will
you
look
want,
back at
next
2023
I can
differently.
rewrite this into a
They
more
will say,
cinematic,
that was the
poetic
moment
version.
she stopped being a symbol